All right, welcome back to the Movie Whale Marathon. Our Halloween marathon has come to an end, which is so ironic
The
on
irony.
on our end because you don't don't worry about it. That's fine. But it's come to an end. We're ending with Beetlejuice. Directed by Tim Burton, came out this year. Obviously, I think that's all the basic info we usually include. Starring all of our classics, which is great, except for, as you might have noticed, the dad character. If you don't know
Yeah, that was
why,
interesting.
that'll be very fun to very delicately explain why he's not included in the
I
movie.
mean, I read a very short story about it because they were kind of very intentional about it, and
Oh,
I was like, that's odd.
it was so good. It was so good. But yeah, Beetlejuice. Do you want to spoilers, obviously? But
Right.
do you want to get into your thoughts first?
Sure. I kind of have like a weird opinion on Beetlejuice in the sense that I can't really nail it down. I like when I'm watching the films, both of them actually, they both hit this vibe. I'm kind of like, this is interesting and different, but I don't know if I like it. And
Hmm.
then like a week or two will go by and I'll think about the movie and I'll be like, that was good. I should watch that again. And
Hmm.
it's like that every single time. And I think the second one is gonna be just like the first one. I thought the casting was great. I love that they got a lot of the actors back. The continuity seemed fine as far as, like, Beetlejuice stuff seems concerned. Everything made sense with where they had left it in the last film.
Hmm.
Um, I kept subconsciously drawing comparisons to the musical, which is not really gonna be a part of the conversation, but that did keep happening.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, no, it was pretty good. Obviously, Jenna Ortega's a great cast for
Hmm.
in this. I called ghost boyfriend thing
Me
right away.
too. Okay, when
Yeah.
did you call it?
Um, it wasn't when she hit her head,
Hmm.
but I was I I was realizing that they weren't really using that at all. She hit her head and she was just immediately fine.
Hmm.
And then he said something to the effect of, "Well, I'll be here." And I went, "Oh, he's a ghost.
Yeah,
He's a ghost."
yeah. I think I got through halfway through their conversation in the treehouse, and I leaned over to the person I was watching it with, and I was like, "He's dead. This is her first experience as a psychic. He's dead. I'll put money on it." And then it was pretty solidified once we didn't see the parents' faces. I did not call that he murdered them. I just thought it was a
I
situation
wasn't
where they all
sure.
died.
Mhm.
I think they set it up just fine, being real ambiguous with everything and creepy. But I did not call that. That was a
Mhm.
surprise.
I didn't call the murder either. I just kinda, like, it was noticeably weird when you didn't see their faces and the tone. There might have been a soundtrack cue or something, especially on the father who was sitting watching TV, and the sort of, like, flippant way that the character said he doesn't really do much after his accident. I
Hmm.
just kinda went,
What accident? Accident?
"Hmm."
What do you mean?
That was almost ominous in the way that you don't care about the consequences of the guy's
Hmm.
accident, but okay, we'll move on. Him being a full-on con artist, I did not see coming.
Yeah,
I did not.
that was something. He was
Yeah.
a
Um,
sneaky little shit.
yeah, for real. Just like, "You're real cute. I'm gonna get you to sell your soul so that I
Yeah,
can go back
I
to
I
living and
did.
killing people."
Yeah, I did think for a second, a split second. It was not a long-lived theory, but I wondered in tandem of him being a ghost if Astrid had actually died when she hit the tree.
Mm. I
And when
briefly wondered that
when she
too.
goes back, her mom
Mhm,
sees her because obviously.
mhm.
But yeah, but I was like, no, they're not gonna do that. That's too much. That's too
Yeah.
much too soon. Um, but yeah, we're a little all over the place already. If those are your basic thoughts, I wanna talk a little about how I feel about it because I think I'm more on the positive side of Beetlejuice just in general.
Mhm.
I enjoy it quite a bit. It is I don't know. I like that older Tim Burton kind of vibe. The claymation Tim Burton movies with when he just goes all out with his weirdness, and it's one of his ideas, not something he's adapting. Planet of the Apes. So when he's doing his own shit, it's really good. So I like the first one quite a bit. As our listeners know, we've already talked about it and we've shared our thoughts. So
yes, we've talked quite a bit about the first movie.
Yes,
already.
we have already. See that episode from weeks ago. But this one, I was, because of the times we live in and the kinds of films we get every now and then, I did go in with low expectations. I was ready for it to be a disappointing rehash or retread or doing the exact same thing. And I don't feel like it did that. I really do feel this is an example of they took what made the first one fun and they dialed it up. Like, they doubled down on it. Like, we got more exploration of the afterlife, which is just as wacky and fun and cool. I do have a little more to say about that. I kind of wish we would have gotten even more of it. But what we saw was neat. They brought back the practical effects, the costumes,
it looked great.
It does,
like,
yes, and the fact that they did actual legit like claymation, it looks like it's some. I haven't fact checked that, but I'm pretty sure they did for the sandworms and for the plane crash scene. Like, it was great to see that, and then the characters, I feel like, all feel like themselves again, but they feel like they've grown and they've changed. Like, sometimes as well with sequels like this, you get the characters and they're exactly the same, even though it's been like 30 years. I think that Lydia is very believable and genuine. I like that the conflict between her and Astrid is mostly one-sided. So often in these movies as well, you get this like, oh, teenagers, we're button heads, and it's not that. Like, Astrid has legitimate reasons to be upset and confrontational, and Lydia's just like upset that she can do nothing to fix it, but she's still there for her kid. Like, I really liked that there was only conflict really on one end, because it doesn't make Lydia a dickhead like so many other movies kind of have. Beetlejuice was great again. Sorry.
Maybe a surprising amount of a pushover in this film.
Lydia, yeah, but like that's kind of the arc, though. Like.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
But like, surprisingly,
okay, But I didn't expect it from,
because of what she was, and I do like though that her stepmom. I can never remember her name. Crap. Where I just had it. She's not on the main cast list, unfortunately.
Delia?
Is it Delia? Yes, Delia. Delia. I like that she calls her out on that. She's like, "Where is the goth little badass that that I met back in the day? Like, where is she? Bring her back." It was grosser than I was anticipating, which I think to its benefit.
Right.
Like, again, with the practical. Yeah, with Beetlejuice's guts spilling out was great. Was not expecting Beetlejuice monster baby to crawl out of Lydia's womb.
Yeah. That was unpleasant.
That was disgusting, but again, I think it works. Seeing all of the new different ways that a character has died and they still look like that in the afterlife, all of that looked great. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they did really well with expanding on what the first one did without it feeling like a soulless rehash, except for one or two elements. I like that we get an expansion on like what Beetlejuice can do. We see different things that he can do. I like that we have a full-blown music sequence. I like the black and white flashback. I like all of that. I do think that it's harder to understand Beetlejuice now just because Michael Keaton's voice is deeper, and there were some instances where I didn't know what he was saying. But yeah, my issues are few, but I think significant. I don't think they necessarily ruin anything, but I think you could kind of move them around a little bit, and it could be better. But I've been talking a lot, so I don't want to steamroll.
I guess when you're talking issues, and I don't know if this really counts as an issue, but the like ex-wife character, I can't remember her name right now. The
Start
one
with-
that like stitch yourself back
Yeah,
up.
yeah. That's just
She had such a
she's credited as Beetlejuice's wife. That's gross. She had a name in the
she had
movie.
a name.
Actually,
I
that's
don't
just
remember what it
Google's
was. I don't
credit.
know what that
Yeah.
makes name.
I thought it started with an
But yeah, so
S.
maybe.
Let me check.
Um, she was she had such a cool entrance. And
Dolores. It
like
was not an
just
S.
oh, Dolores. Oh, that makes sense. But anyway, she had such a cool entrance, and then like a backstory, and she didn't do
That's
anything.
exactly what I was gonna say. That's the first thing I said once the movie finished was her stapling herself together after being brought back in that way. That was awesome. That was so cool.
I was immediately like on her side, even though she was clearly going to be bad
Yes.
news. Like,
Yes. But yeah, they do nothing with her. Absolutely 156% nothing. They didn't do a damn thing with her at all. You could take her out of the movie and it changes nothing. Because the Willem Dafoe's character, he's like investigating her, but then also separately is investigating the fact that Beetlejuice brought Lydia into the afterlife. You could still bring his character in, who's almost nothing. He's a little more than nothing, but not by much. So like
his secretary was great though. Like, that was fantastic.
Yes.
The person who always handed him coffee.
Yes, for him just to crush. Yeah. Yeah, she was good. So I don't know why they did that. I don't think it would have been difficult to make her more of a antagonist. I don't know what I would do necessarily, because again, she doesn't even really kick things off. Like it looks like she does, right? It kind of looks like, 'cause she starts things off, but then he is going after Lydia again now, and then takes the next step because her dad has died, and he's in the paper. All this, like, they're back in town. Like, it had nothing to do with Dolores.
And Beetlejuice, like, interactions with Lydia are almost exclusively about the fact that Astrid is, like, in danger, or there needs, like, something going on, right? Like, it's not about Dolores at all.
Yeah.
And she walks around looking ominous for most of the movie, you know, getting a black wedding dress for the vibes, because it's a good vibe. But there's no like reason for her to be there other than potentially to up the stakes a little bit for Beetlejuice.
Right.
That's kind of
then-
it. And then she does technically show up at the end and kind of solve the wedding thing, but I don't know. That's it.
Yeah, but then they beat her the same way they beat Beetlejuice in the last one. That's the only one that makes it feel like more of a legitimate rehash, is they just summon a sandworm that comes down and eats her. And I'm hoping that because it was her and the shitty boyfriend, the weird TV producer, that they come back for the third one, just because Beetlejuice implies you could get a Beetlejuice. I'd be down for that.
I agree.
I feel like there's some fun potential to be had here. I do
Although,
think...
do you dare to name a movie Beetlejuice?
Of course you do. Like, for fun, why not? I do kind of wish, though, to make things feel a little more cohesive, if I were to change things up, I'd remove... I don't know. I'd probably shouldn't remove Dolores. I'd make Dolores more significant. Don't know how, but I would. Beetlejuice would then essentially hire Jeremy, the little murderer kid, and he's the one, like, he specifically is trying to seduce, not in the gross way, but like bring the Dietzes back to the town, you know, kidnaps Astrid and gets, like, he's smart enough that he's like orchestrating all this, and then maybe Dolores brings it all down, because without that you've got Dolores and her completely unrelated motivations, Beetlejuice and his completely unrelated motivations, and Jeremy and his completely unrelated motivations, all going on at the same time, and then only coming together just barely. Like, it's super fun that Beetlejuice is the guy that gets to send Jeremy to hell, essentially. Like, that was really fun and feels great. And it was like the one F-bomb for the movie. That's great. But then, like, Jeremy is the slow burn of this movie,
Mhm.
and then he's gone in an instant. And it is fulfilling, but it's almost like, okay, well, you kind of set this up a little bit to
Well,
be maybe a little more long lasting, but no, guess not. Okay, that's fine.
I think, I mean, it's kind of a two-parter, so I don't know if that really counts, but Astrid's whole thing is that she feels isolated since the death of her dad,
Mm-hmm.
and she's kind of almost self-isolating because she, like, either her mom is lying to her, or her mom is like, about not being able to contact her dad, or, her mom is lying to her about seeing ghosts at all. And, like, and that's kind of what she's kind of trapped herself into. So she starts the film very focused on, I miss my dad, I want to see my dad. And then Jeremy, right, comes along, and he's a nice distraction from that. He kind of gets it. He seems to have that sort of melancholy vibe, and he's a little cute, right? So he's a distraction. But the moment he says, "You get to see your dad," is the moment she decides to make the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So the slow burn, like, plot in this sense is actually Astrid trying to find her dad.
True.
It's not as obvious as it maybe could be, but that is, like, the most consistent motivation throughout the film, other than potentially um, Delia's motivation to be a drama queen. I don't know. She has a very intentional, like, push through the entire film. She's gonna do what she wants to do the whole time, and that's kinda great, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really have a lot to do with the plot.
Fair, I suppose. Yeah, I feel like things are a little disjointed, is all, and I'd like it to feel more connected because I think all the pieces are really good. I just
Yeah. I
I
kind of like that everybody has a different motivation and that they kind of weave together in that way,
mm-hmm.
but I do agree that it leads to a lot of open-ended stuff, a lot of stuff that just kinda feels thrown in there or unnecessary or completely unused, like
I
Dolores.
mean, just yeah, a little bit, and like I feel like it's because it's so fast and because it's so fun to see Beetlejuice deny Jeremy's train pass or whatever. We very quickly just move beyond that. Astrid died and then
Mhm.
didn't. Like I feel like that should kind of be a little bit more of a like a big deal, like something that they spend more time trying to fix. Like I feel I
Mhm.
almost feel like if you had a timer on the clock, the amount of time that Astrid is dead and Lydia finds her on the train and bumps into their dad and they fall onto Saturn and come back and then Beetlejuice stamps the book would almost be the same amount of time as the little music number at the end. Like because it's so quick and it's just
Mhm.
like it's a fun like we see it coming because they're explaining it and they're talking about it, but like Astrid being dead and trading her life for this crazy murder boy, I just feel it could be more interesting and have more weight. I feel like
Sure.
one of the characters maybe should be moved around, like either Dolores or Jeremy. Like, because I feel like Beetlejuice could have also been the one to be like, "Hey, if you help me out with this thing, you can see your dad." Like, don't have him do the whole wanting to marry Astrid again, like with Lydia. He's got like this
Mhm.
other thing. He's like they're trading lives with her. Like that's even worse. Like that's something that uh Delia. I'm sorry, God, all the names that Lydia would be even more upset about. Though I will say, going back to positives, Lydia going from full blown it Pennywise terror of seeing him pop up here or there and having like little mini panic attacks to get your ass out of that diorama and help me with this shit right now, you son of a bitch. Like I like how they just because she is technically familiar with him, they're like reluctant partners in that moment. Like I don't know why.
Mhm.
I just really enjoyed that dynamic there for a second. Cause she's like, "What
No,
do you
you're
want?
right.
What do you
Like,
What do you
the
want?
the
You son of a
moment where
bitch!"
she the moment where she figures out, she's like, "This is my only option, and I absolutely hate it, but it does not matter because Astrid is in trouble."
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love that turn for the character. It's like, it kind of feels like old Lydia. Kind of feels like movie
Yeah.
one, Lydia, right? Where it's not as affected as Goth Lydia was, where Goth Lydia is like, kind of, I'm sad about the world and therefore I don't care what you're saying. It was a little bit more driven, but it was still very, very cool.
Because I think they did both really well. Like, I was not expecting to find Beetlejuice scary, but having him pop up in the crowd and then in that group of people at the school, like, it is freaky to see him amongst regular people with modern day effects. Like, because usually when we saw him in the last movie, he's kind of isolated, or he's just in weird diorama ghost scenes, so he just kind of blends in. So it was freaky to see him like that. But then again, when Lydia summons him and they're just talking, it's like he works both ways. It was interesting.
Like the jump scares in the beginning were effective, and I thought that was a good touch because what people mostly remember from are the jokes. Like it is kind of a creepy film, and there's some like creepy story stuff that goes on with Beetlejuice. It's about the afterlife and demons and stuff, but it's mostly remembered for its jokes. So it was nice to start with maybe a slightly more serious tone. I mean, there were definitely jokes kind of like woven through, but to start with like Lydia having a hard time managing her ability to see things. She's beginners. The fact that her dad dies, right? To start with a slightly heavier tone actually really set a good start, I think, for the whole film. Like I think that was a really smart choice, and I think it worked really well. It was able to stay serious when it needed to, but also get silly later because of the fantastic start that it had.
I agree. I think it balanced the tones very well. I think that is something that Tim Burton's general aesthetic does really well, though, and I'm glad like he's maintained that. Is like he can do the serious or he can do the goofy. It works for either one. And yeah, I felt that was consistent because like we have a darker antagonist of this movie, I think, which is not Dolores or Jeremy really. It's whatever his name is, that shitty TV producer, Rory. Like he's a full blown piece of shit, and it was interesting to go all out with him, and I like his comeuppance in the end, and I like that again, a little moment between Beetlejuice and Lydia, where he's like, "You want to practice some physical therapy?" and gives her that great big weird gross stripy arm, and she just slugs him like, and he also he gives him the truth serum. It's like Beetlejuice is not a fan of his either, which is very very fun.
It is very interesting because like Beetlejuice was that kind of in the first film for Lydia. Like he was deceptive and kind of taking advantage when he could, and then he sees someone else doing that to her, and he's like, "Nope, absolutely will not stand for that." And I was like, what? Why?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what he says to Jeremy, but I think the stamp is like shit out of luck, and he says something like fuck off or something, fuck face, something like that. But like, dude, aren't you also like a vicious murderer guy? Yeah. Like, aren't you're like a demon man?
Isn't that also what you were doing?
Wouldn't you like admire this child? Like, trying to trade it? Right. Like, I'm not trying to take away from the moment because it is funny, but it is interesting where Beetlejuice's alliances or his loyalties lie. A couple other little instances of.
I almost wonder.
No, go ahead.
Note on that before we move on. I almost wonder if we are, as an audience, because people have made him so iconic and people enjoy the films. I wonder if it's supposed to be sort of like between the films, Beetlejuice maybe has like a respect for the Dietz family because they kind of went toe to toe with him a bit, especially Lydia, and maybe he sort of sees them as peers now rather than victims, and that will change your mindset about how you allow people to interact with those. But it could just be the simple fact that now we as audience members like Beetlejuice, and so they're going to a little bit of an effort to make him more likable than he was in the first film. Because in the first film, he's mostly just creepy. Like he's mostly just a creeper.
Yeah. and in the first film, he seems to be more of a freelance guy, but in this movie, he's got an office and employees again. So that's one of my little would have liked a little more explanation, which is how he fixed his head, how he got like reinstated to an official position in this weird afterlife bureaucracy mumbo jumbo, and because it was also. It's confusing that at the end of the first one, he's in the waiting room with a number, like all the other dead people, but he was already dead.
Right.
But now he's just like doing his thing, which means, for whatever reason, for the last 30 years, he's just decided not to mess with Lydia, and now all of a sudden, he's decided he's going to, because they quote unquote got rid of him, but seeing what happened in this movie, no, they didn't. He just decided he didn't want to mess with them anymore.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit bizarre. And then at first, when we see, moving on to another, wish they would have explained this a little bit more. When we see Astrid's dad, I was like, oh, that's why Lydia never saw him. He got swept up into this weird workforce of the afterlife, and he's stuck behind a desk. And he's been there this whole time. And then he's like, nope, I'm there all the time. I know you guys can't see me. I'm so sorry about that. But hey, I'm there and I love you. And I'm like, why? For what reason? Why can't Lydia see you? Was anyone going to even attempt to explain that at all? Ever?
It feels... It's a weird idea to introduce the this sort of issue where Lydia can see some ghosts and can't see others, and it doesn't seem to be connected with like the ability to move on or anything, because like that's what happened with Adam and Barbara, I think, the couple that were ghosts in the first movie, and they moved on, which is why Lydia can't see them anymore. But she can't see a ghost that's standing right next to her just because conflict? Like, that doesn't really make any sense.
I don't know. It's weird. I going into this one, Beetlejuice, I was not aware that Lydia was like clairvoyant, because the book in the first one, it says like their only explanation is like mortal people are living, the living will all often ignore the strange and unusual, and she's like, because she's a little goth teenager, I myself am strange and unusual. And I thought that was just because like a kid in Polar Express, she believes in ghosts so she can see the ghosts, because at the end of that one as well, everyone can see Adam and Barbara because they went through that weird thing that Otho did to them, which I think that's probably the loophole somehow. That's my headcanon, because they like died twice. They were able to like pass on for some reason. I don't know. I'm guessing. I never read the book. But to have her be like full blown I see dead people, I wasn't expecting that. I like that. That's cool. I don't think that hurts the first one. I just maybe I'm an idiot. I did not interpret it that way from the first movie, that she was a little psychic the whole time.
I don't think I did. Yeah, I don't think I did either. Maybe to be revised.
Yeah, we'll see. Because we already saw it, but we're gonna watch it a second time.
Seen it, but time travel is a thing.
It is. If you've watched our Terminator marathon, you know how we feel about that. Oh shit, that hasn't happened yet, technically.
Aware of all the options.
Uh-huh. We haven't watched the Terminator. I don't know what you're talking about.
We're doing great. We're doing so well.
I'm timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. I'm so confused. But yeah.
Did we leave the last franchise saying we'll be back?
God, I hope not.
I think we did.
Oh wait, we might have. Well, anyway, Beetlejuice. Back to Beetlejuice. I really enjoyed Beetlejuice. I think if I were to sum up my thoughts, just because Only seen it once and saw it a little while ago. Don't have a whole lot to get into at the moment. But I thought it was a strong sequel.
Yeah,
I
I
think it
don't
was a
have the
worthy
note.
sequel. I think they had fun with the new material, the relationship
Agreed.
between step grandmother, mother, and daughter, gross, weird new boyfriend slash fiance, Beetlejuice's involvement with all of them. I would have loved to have more of I don't know his name, Astrid's dad, just because he seemed like an interesting guy.
Mhm.
Um, I thought it was funny and sad that Delia dies. Did not see that coming. That hit me
I
there.
know.
I was not expecting
I
that.
didn't. Like the snake thing. I assumed was gonna be a joke somehow, but when they just straight up killed
They
her,
just
I
kill her.
went, "Oh,
They just kill her ass.
okay."
Yeah. I do love the fun that they had with I can't remember his name, but Lydia's dad, because he's such a shit dude in real life that they just killed his ass and killed him in a way where they didn't have to show his face. I do find it a little bit weird in
Mhm.
world to be eaten by a shark and then make your headstone a shark fin. I would not appreciate that if it were
Saw
me.
that too.
If I got hit by a bus and you made my gravestone a tire, I'd find that really upsetting. I'm gonna be real with you. Like I appreciate the visual fun of it by Mr. Burton, but it just allowing myself to be in that world and think of it from that perspective. The deets is, what the fuck, man? That's a little bit rough. I wouldn't have done that myself. But hey, whatevs.
I a even less important detail.
Uh huh.
Um, I used to sew a lot,
Uh huh.
and when I saw that they had covered their entire house
Oh God,
in like gauze
the
fabric,
morning shawl or whatever.
dude, that was probably veil or whatever. Yeah, it
Yeah.
that was probably so expensive.
Uh huh.
Like even I don't know if we're talking props. I don't know if we're talking in world of the story. Whatever it was, that might have been the most expensive thing that they had in their house. It's crazy.
Yeah, that was a lot. I mean, it made for good visuals.
Oh, it was great. I loved it, but it was definitely I was just like I don't even want to think about the amount of yardage that you
Mm-hmm.
just purchased to cover your house and something, and it's gonna get wrecked the moment the wind really starts blowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was good. I think if I were to sum up my complaints then as well, didn't do enough with Dolores, wasted her, really did, because she
Mm,
the opening was fantastic. Um,
mhm.
the flashback was fantastic. Would like to know what a weird magic death cult she was a part of though. Like the magic rules as well. I'm becoming more and more frustrated
I
with.
wonder if oh, don't. Dude, rules are not a thing.
Well, it's just
They're
because
not a thing. Is it funny? Is
Beetlejuice
it
has like
funny?
magic powers
Will it cause a
over
problem?
other
No, it won't.
ghosts for some reason, and it's never really elaborated on as to why. And I just would like to know why, because
There's a
seeing,
class system, he's a demon, so we hired him ghosts. There you
but like we see him in the past, he was just a dude. She was a weird witch, and
go.
he's just a guy.
I don't know.
And then he's like freezing Willem Dafoe, who's like a ghost cop, and he's sucking people into their phones. Like he's got powers out the ass, and I would just like to know why. That's all. That's all.
Maybe she's his origin story. Like by being involved in whatever weird cult thing she had going on,
Hmm,
he got extra stuff.
maybe, maybe. That's
But I
I
don't
just have
know.
questions. That's
That
all.
could be something they do in the third film.
I would, yes, I was gonna say I would love to see some of these things explored in a third one. I'd be very much down for a third one.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's kind of all I've got on Beetlejuice at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have anything either. I think kind of like you were saying, it is a perfect sequel in the sense that it feels exactly like the first one without being just a repeat of the
Mhm.
first one. wh- which I think is really awesome. It's hard to recapture the magic of a first film because the audiences like to hit that note where you're not just doing the same thing, but it still feels like a fresh experience in that world is like it's really hard to hit that. And I think this movie did it pretty much perfectly.
Yeah.
I think there are some things that they ended up because they were doing so much, there are some things that end up feeling neglected in the film, but ultimately it's a good one.
Indeed. I would say 'tis a whale. Not necessarily a grand whale, but
Ooh.
a cool whale, a dead whale, but like in a good way, a dead whale. Because I walked away from this
I
one
think the
having.
bill is a good thing, actually, mostly. It creates a whole ecosystem.
Oh, don't start. We've already used a dead whale as like a bad thing in this series, so that's why I clarified. Nerd. Yes, I know. Um, but I walked away
I
from
don't
it.
know.
Yeah, I walked away from it having had fun. I would watch it again. Um, yeah, and I think you could easily watch these back to back and it not feel like we've already said several times, like it's the same movie twice, like with
Sure.
Incredibles, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
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 So, thoroughly enjoyed it. Would watch again. 'Tis a whale.
Yeah.
All right. You want to try to do
The
a Beetlejuice
whale.
impression like I did before we end this one? What's your
No.
Beetlejuice voice like?
I I'm not even gonna try. I've tried to do Batman, it's embarrassing, so I'm not gonna try.
Batman is easy. It's just, it's just.
I know! That's what I'm saying!
All right. Well, anyway, on to the next. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.